So here's what I want to drive at today. I'm curious where people land on. How good is Sirianni as a head coach? How good is he? So he's now in year 5. It's incredible. He's in year 5, and obviously the last couple of weeks haven't gone well. It's been a strange season, very strange season. They get out yardaged almost every game. They've won 8 of those 12 games. But it does look like the arrow is pointed down. A lot of people have said through the years, an argument against Hurts has also been an argument against Sirianni, whether you buy into it or not. One of the arguments has been there's so much there, so much around him. Howie gave him so much. So I'm curious today at 215-592-9494, in light of now a new season, what has happened, the fact that it is possible, it's a second collapse in 3 seasons. It's possible. Yeah, I'm using that word possible. I ask you today at 215-592-9494, what do you make of the job Nick Sirianni is doing this year? And big picture, what level of head coach do you think he is? John, first crack at it. How do you size up Nick Sirianni at this stage?
This is hard. I have struggled with this throughout. Throughout.
Yep, I know you have.
And I do think Nick does a lot of things incredibly well in terms of motivating these guys. He does things I've never heard of in terms of holding these guys accountable. I wonder if we're starting to see cracks in the accountability system. I wonder if some of that stuff, is wearing thin. I don't know. But I know that the discipline is way out of whack. We have 14 penalties in a game. That's what's going on here. It doesn't look right when you look at the final numbers.
It's bizarre.
And we got those penalties there, and it outweighs everything. And then you look at the offensive production, and it's so down.
It's every game. It's
right.
Unbelievable.
So we all suppose that Kevin Patullo is, that's Nick's guy. That's Nick's custom, plant for offensive coordinator, play caller. So they should be excelling in this capacity, the two of them working together, and nothing could be further from the truth. This offense is not excelling. Now, to be fair, I think defenses around the NFL might be a little bit ahead of the offenses. I think this is happening to other offenses and other quarterbacks at times. You look at the Bills, and there are weeks where they get absolutely shut down. That makes me feel just a little bit better. Not much better, because we have so much talent, and we're all aware. And this, it feels like Nick Sirianni at times squanders that talent. That sounds ridiculous to say, because here we are sitting on the tail end of a Super Bowl. We are the Super Bowl champions, the reigning Super Bowl champions. So I love Nick Sirianni for what he has given this city, what he has brought us, his system, his the way that he, the way that he works a team, the way that he works a coaching staff, the way that he works a game is magnificent at times. So magnificent that he was the best in the world at it for a time
he's the best game manager I've seen the Eagles have. Now, he's had a really weird last month, because I thought he had some whoppers of mistakes, particularly in the fourth quarter.
I think whenever he has to get involved with the offense, he gets worse at the game management. We noticed it. It's the same thing in 2023 was the only other time he's had any sort of issues at all, management-wise. Yeah, I think it's because he's having to do more.
All right, so
I think it's such a mixed bag, such a huge mixed bag, of extremes in the way that I feel about
And you
Nick
think,
Sirianni.
John, you think the biggest negative is that he's not just purely better running an offense, and that we're going to always have to go through this cycle of who's the coordinator.
That really bothers me.
That's your number one negative, right?
Yes, it will always be this tumultuous thing, like putting us through the ringer every year. It's going to suck, man.
Well, it does seem to be a thing. It's probably not going to change anytime soon. Look, 215-592-9494.
The only way we can find... Okay, sorry to interrupt. If we could get someone like Vic Fangio, like older gentleman who is from the area, grew up an Eagles fan, and has no desire for upward mobility.
Right.
Just wants to stay somewhere and be a miserly and wise offensive coordinator. That's what we need.
He doesn't exist, John.
He might.
Well, Vic Fangio did.
Yeah, no, some do. I think it's trickier because I think those guys often get hired. But anyway, look, 215-592-9494. By hired, I mean for the head coach job. Look, here's where I'm at. Let me tell you my conclusion. I'm going to walk through it. Because, again, I'm curious where you stand on Sirianni at this stage. So I'm going to give you my conclusion right now. I'm going to stand by saying he's a great coach. I just want you to know that from the outset. I think he's a great coach. I think he's one of the best in pro football. Now, do I feel a little shaky saying that in light of not only the last couple of weeks, but the season? Yeah, I'll be honest. Sure. Of course I feel shakier. I mean, the reality is that it is possible, and I'm using that word possible, that another collapse is happening / on the horizon. And if it's 2 out of 3 years, that would be absurd. It really would be. Look, I've said before, and I'll take it to an even higher level. I've said many times, I think he's a great coach, great with a capital G, meaning really, really great, meaning really, really great. But it's been a really weird year, and it makes you kind of wonder. I think the point John's made now for 5 years about it's unfortunate and a mark against him that he's not purely just better with the schematic thing and just being able to be that guy on offense. It is a negative. I mean, it's a real clear negative, and it has both short-term and long-term implications in a bad way. With that said, you guys know, I've said it many times in the last couple of weeks, I think Hurts is hurting them far more on offense than Sirianni / Patullo are. So, to me, it kind of comes back to a Doug Carson 2020 thing. Like, and of course, this isn't a 2020 team, right? That team finished 4-11-1. This team's likely to go to the playoffs, likely to get double-digit wins. But the offense is, again, like a freaking root canal. And this time with more talent. I'm not going to say they have all this talent that we used to say, because I think, frankly, they're hampered by age, by use, by a lot of different things. But the reality is they have more talent than in 2020. But I know this. In 2020, I was freaking pounding the table saying this is more on Carson than Doug. And a lot of people told me I'm wrong, and that's fine. But this year to this point, more people are saying that this is on Sirianni and Patullo than Hurts. And I think if you're thinking that, I think you're wrong. Now, that's part of why I stand by Sirianni. With that said, I can't tell you I'm exactly, impressed with his offensive thing. How can I be? I mean, I can't be. But, of course, it would be interesting if it was a different style quarterback and he was a little bit more of an open playbook, what would it look like? And we won't know until that day comes, and that day might not come for a long, long time. So, sure, I'm shaken. Here's an odd one. I am obviously frustrated and unimpressed with how much has gone wrong this year, and I put a lot of that on the head coach. I mean, the offense does stink. The penalties are massive. The AJ turmoil seems to be never-ending, and that's only a small subset of things that have gone wrong this year. And so you got to put a lot of that on the coach. You have to. With that said, here's where it gets really weird. I'm oddly impressed that with all of that having gone wrong, they're 8-4. I mean, they are outgained in yards almost every game. And by the way, not by like a yard or two. Like, they get trumped 50, 60, 70 yards in games, and they find ways to win. So riddle that one, Batman. So what do I think? I think he's great. But I also know legs can get a little wobbly sometimes, standing there and saying it, because you watch them play, and you do wonder. I mean, that's truth. You wonder. What level head coach is Sirianni? Great, good, average, below average. What is he, James?
He's great. He's a great head coach. Like, I understand. I think John's concern about the offensive coordinator thing is a fair concern. but that's what it is. I mean, there are a lot of coaches in the league. The Dan Campbell, I know Dan Campbell just took over play calling, hasn't gone great so far. The John Harbaughs, Mike Tomlins, there are so many great head coaches in the NFL who don't call plays. So, like, it is what it is. I get that that's a flaw.
Lombardi, Belichick didn't do either
absolutely,
side. He had a D coordinator, an O coordinator, and like
so many greats. So, like, I get, and I think that's a fair complaint. Outside of that, I think he's elite. I think he's an elite head coach, and I think when he doesn't have to worry about the offense, he is, to your point, as good an in-game manager as we've seen as Eagles head coach. He motivates guys. Guys believe in him, and I know that, like, we're in the middle of something right now. They're 8-4. They collapsed in 2023, and he brought them back with essentially the same group and won the freaking Super Bowl, had the best season we've ever seen from an Eagles team. Like, and I know they were talented, but that head coach had a ton to do with it. I think it's crazy when people dog this guy as a head coach. Again, John's complaint is fair. Outside of that, like, I don't know what there is to complain about this guy. Like, he is a phenomenal motivator. He's a phenomenal culture setter. He is the winningest record in the history of the NFL through 5 years or whatever. Like, what more do we want from him?
All right, Rhea, that's a lot from James. Is he right on point or a little too far there?
James will think I'm crazy. So I think he's a good head coach.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, he's taken them to 2 Super Bowls, won. The collapse, they're teetering on another collapse now. Here, for what he's doing this year, I can't call him great or elite. He's overseeing an offense that they're 24th in total offense. They have not scored more than 16 points since the bye, except the game where they blew a 21-0 lead. I don't think they're tough. They got run over by the Bears. They choked away the Cowboys game. They're certainly not detailed this year. The penalties, show that. The miscommunication, the Devontae Smith throw on the 2-point conversion. I think some guys thought Jalen was going to run and some thought they were going to pay. I mean, it was a mess. I don't know if they're together because I'm not in that locker room.
Yep.
And I think if they lose one more game, that will certainly enter the chat.